Hey guys, Mr. Happy here, and today we are going to discuss the strategy for the hard mode difficulty of Haukke Manor. This dungeon is designed to be challenged by all level 50s and requires an average item level of 48 to enter. To unlock this dungeon, head to Revenant's Toll in Mordona and talk to Lorraine in the building to the south and complete the quest Maniac Manor. This dungeon is vastly different from its level 28 counterpart. Upon entering, you'll notice a great many of the paths are blocked off and you must trek upstairs to get around the tossed bookshelves and obstacles. There are several new trash mobs here. The first one's a demon, which just does a conal attack called Condemnation, which you must avoid. After killing the first trash mob, you will come to a locked and unlocked room. The unlocked room has a Manor Claviger and 2 Manor Acrobats. The Acrobats will spam Blizzard, while the Claviger will use a powerful cone attack. They aren't that strong, however, so kill them before carrying on. The last mob you kill in the pack will drop a tiny key, which must be used to unlock subsequent rooms to get through the dungeon. The next 2 rooms after this will contain the same group of mobs, as well as some additional keys for progression. After the third group of these mobs you kill, you will come to a long hallway with several acrobats and a manor warden. I recommend waiting for the warden to wander close to the party and pull him on his own, since he hits a great deal harder than the acrobats. He will also use a strong conal attack. Simply dodge it and kill him. Destroy the acrobats before progressing forward. You'll see a treasure coffer in the distance, which usually contains some high-level potions. On top of that, there are 2 statues to your left. Upon approaching them, these will both become Manor Sentries, which won't really do anything special other than a strong cone attack, but it has a pretty long cast time. Dispatch of these demons and you will enter the first boss room. The first boss is the Manor Jester. Initially, he will be accompanied by 2 Manor Butlers. These butlers are very weak and should be killed immediately. The Jester himself will usually spam cast Blizzard for a while. Occasionally, he will cast Void Blizzard 3, which hits a good deal harder on the main tank. He also sometimes will cast a plain Void Blizzard on a random target as well. He can also occasionally cast a move called Icefall. This attack will instantly spawn a patch of ice under a random player. This patch will remain there permanently for the rest of the fight. While the initial hit only does several hundred damage, standing in it will result in taking an additional 1,000 damage every 3 seconds, so move out of that immediately. Occasionally during the fight, 2 things will happen. There are 2 cages in the room, one to the south and one to the north. These will occasionally spawn an additional Manor Butler, which can be killed by your DPS in a matter of seconds. Also, he will summon a blue ritual circle that will bring back the initial Manor Butlers, though they won't be any tougher than they were before. There may be a way to stop the ritual, but the butlers are so weak it hardly seemed worth the effort. So dodge Icefall, heal through Void Blizzard 3 and Void Blizzard, kill the Manor Butlers as they spawn, and you should be able to kill this boss pretty quickly. After the boss, you'll come to a crystal ball, which will teleport you to the next part of the dungeon. This next part will consist of a long hallway of lamps similar to the normal mode lamps. They will shoot out lasers in a box in front of them down the entire hallway. Before progressing any further, I recommend you wait for the Manor Warden to get close. Pull him and kill him the same as you did before. Additionally, several mobs will attack you out of an unenterable room on the right side. These mobs, called Altered Whalers, aren't any different than the demon you encountered at the start of the dungeon. Avoid the cone they do, kill them, and progress on. Once you pass the first set of lamps, they should stop exploding. Wait for an opportunity, then trigger the second group of mobs to spawn. These Altered Whalers, on the other hand, take the form of Minotaurs from Sunken Temple. They don't do a whole lot, just a few auto attacks and some undodgeable double attacks occasionally. You can either pull these back to before the second set of lamps, or pull them to the next open spot before the third set of lamps. If you pull them forward, mind you, there is a Manor Warden patrolling this next spot, so proceed with caution. When you kill these mobs, they will drop a tiny key, which will be required to open the next locked door of the dungeon. Pick it up and proceed. Let your tank open this door, as a Manor Sentry and 2 Manor Acrobats will burst out immediately. Kill them in whichever order is best while avoiding their basic attacks and a conal move from the Sentry. The Sentry will eventually flee to open the next boss room, but before following him, grab the treasure coffer in the room he was hiding in. Now for the second boss, who is a great deal more hectic than the first. The second boss is Ash, and he is seriously a tough boss. He's an ancient statue that uses spirit weapons to fight you. He will use basic attacks very often, and he will also occasionally summon a spirit weapon to do a conal cleave attack. For this reason, never stand in front of him unless you are a tank. The first move he'll use, and probably the one you'll see the most often, is Prime Guillotine. This spawns several spirit cutters that cut larger portions of the room. designated by this marked area on the ground. Being hit by one will do several thousand damage, so always be ready to move. He has several varying patterns for this attack. He will start the fight by simply covering 2/3 of the room with the cutters. As his HP drops, he'll gain access to more patterns, including one where they summon in alternate waves on the ground, making 4 lines each with one safe spot at the end. The final pattern he'll use are cross guillotines, which will spawn 4 lines crossing over each other. Always be ready to be moving during this fight since he will use this move quite often. Just be ready to have to do some crazy dodging in this case. The next attack he'll use is called Abyssal Charge. When performing this move, Ash will run to the center of the room to use it. This will summon 5 spears around him, which after a short delay will propel outwards, dealing several thousand damage to anyone they hit. This move is easily telegraphed, so do your best to avoid it. The next move he'll use is called Tenebrous Missile. This will target a random party member with a small missile. The initial hit will only do a few hundred damage, but after contact, it will leave a swirling weapon in the area for a long period of time that hits substantially harder. Just do your best to dodge around them. Due to the erratic nature of Prime Guillotine, purposely placing these on the ends may not always be possible, since you may get trapped in a guillotine that covers 2/3 of the room. You can try to place them at the far corners, but like I said, just do your best to make sure that they're not in a spot where it'll hinder you from dodging Prime Guillotine. For example, if you drop it in the corner of one side of Prime Guillotine, you may not have enough room to dodge it. During the encounter, eventually a Void Portal will spawn. When it does, it will summon a Taurus minion. This minion should be dealt with immediately. If it isn't, the portal that spawned it will begin shooting void miasmas at random party members, dealing about 600 to 700 damage per shot. The Taurus don't have high HP, so focus them down quickly. Now, once during the fight, he also did an attack that summoned several swords around a target, which then converge and paralyze the target. It only happened once, around 30 to 40% HP, and it only went for the healer. It did very little damage, but the paralysis can make it hard to heal during this erratic fight, so remove it ASAP with Asuna. This fight is hectic, but other than the lasers from Prime Guillotine and Abyssal Charge, most of it is just accumulating small damage. Even Abyssal Swing, which is his cleave I mentioned earlier, only hit me as a bard for about 700. So just keep a cool head and always be ready to be on the move, and you should be alright. After this fight, exit the room to find the next crystal ball, which will take you to the basement and the final part of the dungeon. There are several trash mobs down here. First are the Manor Footmen, which are just incredibly weak skeletons. There are also more altered whalers of both Taurus and demon form in the first prison cell. The second prison cell has a congealed blood, which will charge out of the cell with a few Manor Footmen if you approach it. These mobs aren't that strong, so just kill them all before moving on. The third prison cell has a writhing statue and some Manor Footmen. Try to pull these mobs back a bit and avoid the placed AoEs from the statue. Kill them and then turn the corner to find one last Manor Warden. Dispose of him and you are at the last boss. Before that, if you need gear, be sure to keep going forward to find 2 treasure coffers in a prison cell. Both of them should have some item level 60 jewelry. And now for the last boss. The last boss is named Halicarnassus, and she can be a nightmare for new groups. First, let's discuss her basic attacks. When you start the fight, she will do several auto attacks as well as cast a few spells familiar to Haukke Manor's normal mode last boss, Lady Adamantine. She will cast Void Fire 2 on random party members, which you can simply move out of. She will also cast Void Thunder 3 on her main target, which hits for several thousand damage. Using a defensive cooldown or having Stone Skin or Adloquium for this helps immediately. She also has access to Dark Mist, a small AoE around her that will do high damage and place the Terror debuff on anyone it hits, rendering them immobile for 10 seconds. Have the tank and melee move out of this every time it is performed. Shortly into the fight, she will summon a Manor Sentry, which has little health and acts similarly to how it did when you encountered him earlier in the dungeon. Kill it quickly. Once it's dead, Halicarnassus will absorb him and perform the attack Blood Rain, hitting the entire party for about 1000 damage. Additionally, once he has been absorbed, she will now become immune to both stuns and silences, so you can no longer interrupt her casts. She also gains access to a new spell, Void Fire 4. This spell acts similarly to Void Fire 2, except its radius and damage is much larger. Do your best to avoid this attack as it does substantial damage to anyone it hits. At about 50%, she will summon 2 Manor Maidservants. These 2 adds will use Void Fire 3 on their main target, but they hit weak otherwise, so just dispose of them quickly. Each time one dies, she will do Blood Rain again, so try not to kill them both at the same time so you don't take these attacks back to back. Upon killing the second one, Halicarnassus will get a Determination buff, which will greatly increase her damage dealt for the rest of the fight. Once this happens, you need to be on the ball with avoiding Void Fire 4 and Dark Mist, and being prepared for a big tank hit from Void Thunder 3. At 35%, she will summon her final ad, none other than Lady Adamantine. She's a lot more health than the previous ads, and she also has access to Void Thunder 3, Dark Mist, and a basic fire spell. This will mean avoiding Dark Mist and Void Fire 4 at the same time while they are both alive, as well as healing through the extra Void Thunder 3, which still hurts. After Lady Adamantine is dead, Halicarnassus will do one final Blood Rain before gaining a massive haste buff. This is the final phase and is generally a race to kill her as quick as possible. She gains access to 2 new attacks for this time. The first is Beguiling Mists, which will hit the entire party. This will seduce you, causing you to walk uncontrollably towards her for several seconds, not allowing you to perform any actions. We experienced her nuking a target with Void Fire 4 during this, which hit for several thousand damage. It didn't kill them, but it definitely hurt. She also now casts Void Thunder 4, which will hit even harder than Void Thunder 3. So definitely rotate defensive cooldowns and finish her off with a limit break. After that, congratulations, this dungeon is worth 50 philosophy points and 50 mythology points. But anyway guys, thanks for watching, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, favorite, subscribe, and share for more Final Fantasy XIV information and guides. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter where you can get regular updates about what I'm doing, the videos I'm posting, and you can ask me questions. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitch where I will be streaming Final Fantasy XIV classic Final Fantasy games as well as some other games in the year of 2014. But anyway guys, good luck on this dungeon. Until next time, take care.